Driving in these kind of conditions usually highlights anything that you feel uneasy with in a car. See if we can hook up. Welcome back, I'm Tedward, and welcome to the all-new 2025 Porsche 911 Carrera GTS. This is obviously a cabriolet, it's a convertible. We've got white with the red top. But this is one of the most exciting updates I've ever seen from Porsche, especially for a facelift. This is a 992.2, and instead of simply changing its style, its fascia, we get a whole new powertrain. This now makes 532 horsepower, 449 pound-feet of torque from its punched up 3.6 liter flat six with a single turbo and a really trick hybrid system. But this hybrid system is not here for fuel economy. No, you do get some added benefit of lowered emissions, but the real point of this hybrid system is power and instantaneous torque when you ask for it. Now, I haven't driven it at all yet. It only comes in an 8-speed PDK in this configuration, and we're taking it on a pretty long journey. Porsche was very nice, and they said, hey, have you driven the new GTS with this 3.6 liter yet? I said, I have not. They said, great, we're gonna send you a car. And it happened to coincide with the Larz annual Moto tour up through Vermont and New Hampshire. So I asked, is it cool if I put some miles on it? They said, have a great time. Porsche's the best. I love a Porsche, and we're actually going to get to do some proper grand touring in this. And today, this is just the drive up to Burlington. We're going to show you some great things in the next video with this car, where we're up in the mountains doing some proper driving and filming. But I want to know what it's like to actually travel with this thing, because that's what matters, especially in a GTS and a cabriolet. This isn't your track day toy necessarily. I'm sure you could, but you'd buy a GT3 if that were the case. This is 178 grand, so obviously you have money to make choices if you're buying this. First things first, I'm bringing too much stuff, and the frunk of Porsches is wonderful. So I've already got 4 pairs of shoes. I've got my luggage here. I've got a suit jacket, I've got a regular jacket, I've got a hoodie. I hate being underdressed at functions, and I don't really know what this is gonna look like yet. Inside, sure, this is the problem. If I was bringing a passenger, we'd have to load up this parcel shelf in the back. But right now, I'm also doing some media for them. So I've got a couple of cameras, I've got more camera equipment, laptop and fun stuff in the back. This one has the rear seats. I believe you can option these with no rear seats, but that'll fold down and you get a proper little parcel shelf. But so far, I am not strapped for space, and I can even fit my water in this nifty little cup holder. Gone are the days of those little flappy guys out here. 992 changed things around, sometimes for better, sometimes for worse. We're going to get through all of the gripes that I have with 992, primarily the location of these buttons, but we'll be fine. If I had a passenger, they've got a little cup holder here. Now, unfortunately, this doesn't have any fancy looking engine. You can't see anything. You can open the flap and that's about it. But what I do like about this .2 generation is how aggressive it looks from the back. The only gripe I think I have is that this is like a fascia and it's not actually connected to the exhaust. So look, it's 2025. Sometimes we make these weird little concessions for these cars. Now, up front, we've got a 245 section tire on a 20-inch wheel. In the rear, we've got a 315 section tire, and this car has cameras everywhere. It should be good for parking and all that great stuff. So we should just get out and go for a drive, because I have 245 miles to cover and I don't want to be late for the start line. I love the way that closes. All right, this is a little bit of a neighbor waker. So, and you're gonna notice there's a big change in here. Two things really. One, we have an engine start stop button instead of our little turny key. And two, gone are the days of an analog needle driven tachometer. This jumps to life so quickly. We're going to talk about this powertrain while we're driving. It's very complicated, and I've done as much research as I possibly can, but it is nuts. Warm-up phase, normal, great. let's pick this up a little further into the journey. I woke up very early this morning, so starting filming at like 7:30 in the morning after waking up at 5, not exactly me on ready to go, but I'm an hour and 23 minutes into this trip, 89 miles, and I have to already take back something I said about this car when I started. I said that this hybrid system wasn't for fuel economy, and it's not. I don't think that's the purpose. It's definitely for emissions, but not necessarily fuel economy. But what I have to say is that I'm getting 30.5 mpg. I was not expecting to be getting better fuel economy than I would get in my Civic Type R. Anyway, the reason I'm starting here is because I didn't want to take you through all the crummy, nightmarish highways getting out of Massachusetts. Come on. It's always like a little bit of rollback there. And I'd rather start off here at the Common Man. This is my favorite rest stop. This is in Hooksett, New Hampshire, and this is absolutely the best rest stop. But it's also a good opportunity to show you what this can do getting onto the highway, because this is really fast. Kill our fuel economy, but I'm so impressed with the delivery of power in this car. And the thing I like about it is that it allows you to have real world scenarios like what we're doing right now, and just get out of Dodge. Because this is the thing, the older car with the 3-liter twin turbo, it's potent. It's a fast car for sure, but what it doesn't do all that well is give you the power and torque the second, the moment, the instant you request it. And in this car, you put your foot down, it's gone. Okay, so how the heck is this giving me amazing torque delivery and instantaneous throttle response? Well, that's all down to this wild powertrain. So this is a really trick hybrid system. It has 2 electric motors. One of the electric motors is pretty familiar. That electric motor sits between the transmission and the engine, and that's going to deliver a healthy bit of torque to actually fill in and go, right? It's not ever gonna run on electric energy, but we've seen systems like this similar in the past. That's not an uncommon thing, but the trick thing that this has is that it also has an electric motor inside the compressor, inside the turbo, and that turbo has no wastegate. So what it'll do is it will apply that electric motor to spin the turbine super duper fast when you start asking for throttle. So that way, it's basically anti-lag. It's already sending intake pressure before there's any exhaust gases that would normally spin that turbine. And that's really impressive. That's how you get such instantaneous feeling out of this, and why it feels like a high displacement engine, because it doesn't need to wait for that pressure to build. And what it also does is it regens the battery with braking normal and that turbine. So there's no wastegate. So the way I understand it, correct me if I'm wrong, but because there's no wastegate to release that pressure, it's using the pressure and slowing it down with the motor in order to regenerate and send power and recuperate that to the battery, which is up front. It's a 1.9 kilowatt hour battery, about the size of like a normal, car battery, like what you would think of a 12 volt thing. But this also has a 400 volt system. It's a high voltage system. This is ridiculous. And here's the thing I like about this is that you can drive the car and not know any of this. And all you're gonna think is like, wow, that's fast and pretty seamless and very impressive. Let's go into sport mode. And that's just like a reasonable, normal human acceleration, not the crazy car reviewer. We gotta be on it, on it, on it. Also, I need to drive like 800 miles this weekend and not get any speeding tickets. So we need to be reasonable and tempered. Once you get over the fact that this has such a wild hybrid system, which you forget about immediately because it just works, it's kind of like driving a big block Chevy or something, because you just like lean into it and you don't need all these downshifts. Even the turbo engines of the past, that Porsche has had in their cars kind of required a bit of revs or a little bit of a downshift. This does not. And I know that we love high revving engines. This does rev pretty high, but for a daily driver that needs to just operate in traffic and be responsive, this is such a interesting way to go that delivers the performance of like a big displacement engine without the displacement, and while returning like pretty impressive fuel economy, I gotta say. All right, let's go back into normal mode. So that's gonna soften things up a little bit, and because we've got R8, because we've got this high voltage system, it runs everything on that high voltage system. There's no belts. There's no serpentine belt on this car. Everything is driving off of this electrical system. So the AC, the like generator, alternator, whatever. I don't even know how all of that works. It's a little complex, but all I know is there's no belts. So there's no belt service on this car. But that means that everything can happen pretty quickly. So you're not running off of a typical 12 volt system like you would in a normal Porsche before this car. And that means that even like the nose lift operates a little more rapidly than the older cars. I don't think it's like instant, but it's pretty darn quick, and it allows this car to react to things faster. Even the Porsche dynamic chassis control operates faster because of this new electrical system. So the hybrid system is not only giving you the power and performance and potentially a little fuel economy, it's also giving this car the ability to move things and adjust things faster. Oof, but you're gonna get some road noise. You're gonna feel the bumps. It's a sports car. That is fine. Maybe there's some quieter tires out there that can shut up some of this road noise. On a long drive, my Lexus GX, this is not an S-Class. You are not gonna get that quiet luxury performance. But that's, I think, the concession you make when you drive a proper sports car. It should be a little loud. You should hear the road. You should be part of that experience. And if you don't want that, maybe you're looking in the wrong department. And I think that when people want things like that out of sports cars, it ends up muddling the sports car market. Maybe I'm going a little too deep on this, but if you want your sports car to be a luxury car, then this is why we kind of lost the sports car, because I think people wanted too much out of their sports cars, where they just need to be fast, handle, fun, and you make that little bit of sacrifice for road noise or just comfort. And this is still plenty comfortable. I've got heated and cooled seats, which I can turn on at the same time. And these are actually really good ventilated seats, unlike a lot of ventilated seats in the market, which you kind of ask, is this thing on? I've spent a good bit of time in 992s over the last year or two, from GT3 RS to Targas to Carrera S's, all the goods, right? And one of my big complaints was like the ergonomic changes they made to this cabin. It was annoying. I wasn't familiar with some of it, and some of it I'm getting familiar with, and still I'm not a huge fan of. Like, I don't like piano black, we don't need this, but these buttons are fantastic. I think these all look really good. The little bronze shaver for the shifter, I've come to appreciate and enjoy that. On the Taycan, the electric car, that's up here on the dashboard, confuses me every time, and I forget where it is almost every time. That's on me, that's okay. But these buttons right here for the window switches, especially on 992.1, I honestly, I want to know if they move these forward a little bit, because I feel like I'm not having to do the normal T-Rex arms that I do when I drive 992s, and I'm wondering if .2 actually solved this a little bit. I'll have to check, but tell me in the comments, maybe they actually did move these buttons forward slightly. I just thought 991 kind of had everything dialed in really well, and with 992, there's a couple little things that are just annoying. A lot of folks have reported on NVH, noises, vibrations, creaks and squeaks and things, and they haven't been that thrilled with the interior quality of their 992s. So far, so good. We've only got, 3,000 miles on this car so far, so it should be nice and tight, but I will report to you, and you will certainly hear it through the binaural audio, if this thing starts acting up throughout the weekend. But so far, this is okay. GTS 992.2 comes standard with rear axle steering. So you're always going to get the rear axle steer on this thing. And I'm still just blown away by this fuel economy. One of the coolest things is this has the extended range fuel tank. Not sure if that's available on the 4-wheel drive models. This is a 2-wheel drive, rear wheel drive, and it has a 22.1 gallons, which means that if I were to be getting 30 miles per gallon, that is an over 600 mile range out of this tank. This is unbelievable. Unfortunately, I do not have such a range. I would have to stop and pee more frequently than this car is going to have to stop and get fuel. Visibility, reasonable. I'm losing a bit, especially that quarter back there with the convertible top. When we put that down later in the weekend, it's going to be a lot easier, but for the sake of my eardrums and listening to podcasts and just enjoying my drive up to Vermont right now, I'm going to leave this roof up. And it's a soft top, but it's not really a soft top. These things are crazy solid. So while it may look like, yep, it's a cloth soft top, this is really well insulated, and you probably wouldn't notice that much of a difference in road noise between this and the hardtop coupe. I will say though, I miss the tachometer. It was jewelry, it was beautiful. I love that needle moving and sweeping, and there was a little bit of like a reflection and a glow to it that I thought really shaped and made this beautiful. Now, the full dashboard with like the 5-gauge pod, typical 911 thing, I get it. You can kind of get rid of some of that because usually the steering wheel was hiding the gauges on the side anyway. You couldn't see them unless you kind of played this game. So the screen is doing it justice, but I have a feeling I'm not the only one with a negative opinion toward losing that tachometer, and I'm imagining they're going to bring it back, but in Porsche form, I would imagine and wager that they will bring it back, but it will only be available in some like limited edition car, whether it's an anniversary edition or when they bring back like whatever the next generation of the ST is going to be or something along those lines. So let's see what happens in the next few years of the 992.2, but something tells me there's going to be a tachometer available and it will be quite costly. It does look like we're going to enter some precipitation up here. These are some low-lying clouds. Something else that's cool, you can change the layout of this display. So if you want to just have simple stuff and customize that, you can. When I'm here, I like having my tag, I like having some tire information, and then my fuel economy on the trip. But you can also change it to this. I can get my map going. I can just have the maps. This is where you can't do that when you have the center tachometer. So there is a little bit of a benefit to just having the screen in that regard. Ooh, all right, this is the one that I wanted to talk about. Would you look at that? The red line is about 12 o'clock, maybe a little over. I get questioned all the time about my 911, my 88 Carrera. Why is your tachometer rotated? It's just what you do. It's the race car thing. Everybody does that. It's easier to see. You're spending more time up there anyway, so it's just where the needle's going to be if you're driving a bit hard. So if you're wondering why my tach is canted, well, even the fake screen tachometer on this GTS has that tach. Still get the whole 5-gauge pod if I'd like. Caution, turn on wet. Please adjust driving style. So that would put me over, I guess here. Goes into wet mode, reduces my throttle sensitivity, probably changes the transmission tuning a little bit. I mean, we're not in like a dire scenario for this. Oh look, it shows it there too. Not in a dire scenario for this, so not that concerned. Got some real rain now. It's actually pooling on the road, so I've cooled it down about 10 miles an hour just because it was starting to get that little hydroplane feeling in the front wheel. What is interesting to me though is like I really am hyper aware of the tire size in the rear, and in my brain, a really wide tire on the wet is more likely to hydroplane, right? Am I wrong here? So I think about that when I'm driving a car like this, where I'm like, okay, if I'm starting to feel this, how does a 315 section tire behave in a puddle? There's also a little symbol over here that automatically came on because the car knew that it's wet. So it shows that it's like, hey, I know that you're in this situation. I knocked this down to wet mode. And honestly, it just feels so stable and happy, and I'm in a good spot. Driving in these kind of conditions usually highlights anything that you feel uneasy with in a car. Four-wheel steering is something that I'm often uneasy with in a lot of different cars. I don't really feel that safe and comfortable. And safe, I don't mean like I feel like it's dangerous, but twitchy sometimes in the RS6 Avant. I feel a little twitchy in the GTC4 Lusso. Not that like you're gonna have to suffer through that drive. That's a phenomenal car. But I think rear steer can sometimes feel a little unnerving in certain situations. It does a great job when you're on the highway of making the car more stable because you're gonna glide across lanes. It's like it's increasing the wheelbase. And then in tighter situations, it's gonna basically shorten that wheelbase and make it more agile. But if it doesn't behave perfectly predictably with the tuning and algorithm that they've got going on, it can feel really unnerving when you move the wheel and the car does something. And I've gotta give Porsche a lot of credit because this four-wheel steering system feels fantastic. You almost don't notice it's there, but even in this current situation where I've got reduced visibility, I've got some loud road noise because this road is a little imperfect, I've got reduced traction. All these things normally contribute to like a hyper-awareness of the things that you're uneasy with, and I'm not feeling uneasy about the four-wheel steering. It actually just feels completely natural. Oh, quick, I gave up. I had to use the bathroom. Palisade looks so good. Oh my god. Look at those taillights. Those are some impressive taillights. Around town, this thing is operating right now at like 1,000 RPM. And I can lean into it a little bit and it still goes. It is very strange the way this powertrain operates. But it's seamless. And like I said, if you didn't know what it was, you would just think it was a big engine. We are going to nose lift and I see our fleet of cars. That's it. That looks great. Oh, yes. Looks like we are going to fit in just fine over here. And hopefully this Kia Sportage doesn't, you know what? We are going to park up next to this Fiesta ST because I genuinely believe that that Fiesta ST is less likely to cause trouble. First stop. So we went to Beta Technologies, but unfortunately we cannot actually film anything, but the airplanes and the vertical takeoff and landing helicopter / airplane style thing is absolutely wild. It's really cool to see the production. I can show you a few pictures, but now we are heading out to Smuggler's Notch and we've already found very Vermont-y roads because they are unpaved and you can start to feel a little loosey-goosey, traction control going a little nuts, and we have 500 horsepower being restrained by computer algorithms, making sure that we don't spin off over there. But that's the beauty of Vermont, is because you kind of never know what to expect. Sometimes you're out in dairy farms, sometimes you're just looking at goats in a yard, sometimes it's gravel, sometimes it's dirt. When the roads go away, that's when we're here to play. Next to me, Owen, right?
Yep.
Okay, Owen. So this is one of the friends of one of the other guys on the rally. He's helping me out because I've only got one set of hands on this thing. And at some point, I'm going to have to try to get some footage for these people. I've got a lot of cameras with me, and it is going to be tricky as a solo artist on this trek. But how are you liking the GTS so far?
This is incredible. I saw it in the parking lot and I said, that's the Dot 2. Oh my God. And then I met Tedward and he says, it's mine for the week. So I can help with the rolling shots.
Such seamless gear changes, and I appreciate that in the wet right now because it means that I'm not upsetting the rear of the car between shifts. This is like a superpower. So it serves more than just acceleration. It serves as like balance. Look at that. You can hear some compressor noise. Here, let's see if we can get some of that compressor noise going. Ready, listen to the surge. Oh, that's good. Little waterfall action over here.
So sick.
Heck yeah. See if it can hook up. It's doing its best. Gets narrower right here. This is a spot where you cannot play because it gets to be this. So we're ending this little first impressions drive of the 992 GTS here in Stowe, Vermont at the Trapp Family Lodge. It's amazing what this car is capable of and how stupid fast it is while kind of looking a little like a grandma spec. It looks a little like it belongs. Let's get a little shot of our friends here. This looks fantastic. Oh yeah, we love to see it. This is the 3-liter CSI. That looks so sick. And then our other friend over here in his Focus Fiesta ST. But this car is a highway muncher. It'll do, I'm gonna put this up just in case. It'll do 29, 30 miles per gallon if you're reasonable with it. And that's not like 65 miles an hour. I'm talking like 29, 30 miles per gallon if you're driving at 75 miles per hour. This is bananas. This is just unfounded. I was not anticipating the system to be able to do that. The increased displacement mixed with this hybrid system is giving you massive torque at all times. And the torque fill between the shifts is unlike any other car that says they have torque fill, because this really fills every possible gap. Kind of like that Fiesta going in between the Ram and the Mazda. So I'm hoping the next thing we can do is find a spot to park, because I really don't want to get caught up next to anybody sketchy. This looks like a reasonable spot. And now I've got my camera all cleaned off thanks to Owen, so I can actually see where I'm going. See, this is where the car does start to feel a little bit wide, but we're in the clear. So that's gonna do it for day one and the first little jaunt in this Carrera GTS with the new 3.6-liter hybrid powertrain. All right, this is really uncouth of me to do at like the lodge, but you see how like fast this thing revs? It's so oh God, I like this car a lot, more than I thought I was going to. Yeah, this is good. I want to put you back down. There we go. Look how fast this thing lowers because it's on the 400-volt system. It's nuts. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching, liking, commenting, and subscribing. Don't forget to respect the drive. There will be much more on this car because I'm driving it all weekend, and we've only done 291 miles of the 850 to 900 miles I'm gonna drive it. So stay tuned, because this thing is blowing minds and might actually sway some GT3 drivers away from that, because I bet if you spec this out pretty heavily and tastefully and got the color you wanted, you'd still be probably 40 to 50 to maybe even 60 grand under what your GT3 spec would be. And it's softer, more usable on the road, and stupid fast with rear-wheel drive and PDK. So anyway, that's enough. See you in the next one.
Nice.